All right. Hey, everybody. I'm live. I'm Richie Guerrero, Richie Bongo in some circles. And I'm here with Peter Blenkinsop. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, excellent. Wow, man. It's great for you to be here. I picked up your book, and wow, man, what a game changer. I'm telling you. I can't believe you put all that work into it. And it's got history. It's got maneuvers, it's got photos, some how to. It breaks it down from country to country and wave ski and all this great stuff in there. So welcome. And I just want to say, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to that book, man. I mean, the journey from little Pete to to getting to that point of being a professional.
yeah. I started playing in kayaks a little bit when I was in the Scouts, and when I hit probably about 18, something like that, my sister and her friends decided to join the local canoe club. And she said, "Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Oh, I've done a bit of kayak in the Scouts. Yeah, why not? That was quite enjoyable." And so I went to the local canoe club, got to play in the boats, different types, and they had this unofficial Wednesday night surf down at the local beach near a place called Newquay, which is the local area for the main hot surf area, if you like. And I used to take my 3.5 meter plastic all-round boat for a little surf while they, without no idea what I'm doing, of course, while they were in their proper surf kayaks or wave skis.
Hmm.
Well, this is very good fun. And then I got really into whitewater kayaking. That was probably one of my main thing. Um, really enjoyed that, but carried on doing the surfing. Then my brother got into wave skiing, so I then bought a wave ski.
Uh-huh.
So then I went along, still going to the canoe club, still doing whitewater kayaking, um, got right into wave skiing. But I found the local surf kayak competitions um, were in my area, and they also had wave ski competitions. So I used to go to both of them, and that really pushed me in the direction of getting into surfing, kayaks, and wave skis. Um, Mainly wave skis at that point. But then I found that the wave ski lot were very good and a little bit more. I'd say elite is probably not the best term for it, but
Hmm.
um, they knew what they was doing, and I was just a beginner. And yes, they're all friendly and it's all good, but it was all about the people doing the winning and everything else. But I also went along to the kayak events, and they were a much friendlier bunch. They weren't so stressed out about being elite, and that welcomed everybody into it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
so I ended up going to the kayak events a lot more in wave skis and then into kayaks. And um, my wave ski I've had for many years. I had went through about 3 or 4 different wave skis, and then a custom one made for me, and then I've had that for probably 30 odd years now, and it's still in my garage, and gets wet once every 5 or 6 years, I suppose. Um, yeah, so then I got right into the competition zone, um, and carried on up until I made the English team, and then competed in the national competitions and then the international competitions, um, and carried on up through, really.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I always like to ask guys like you. You had your hand in wave ski,
Yeah,
and then you had your hand in surf kayak. And I actually talked to Nathan Eads once here,
yeah,
and I don't want to go into his whole story, but he ended up, of course, moving to wave ski pretty much 99% of the time. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so what drew you to more of the surf kayak as far
Well,
as
so the thing is wave ski and kayaks, they are slightly different craft, um, but the reality is the kayak is much warmer than the wave ski. Um, just because you're in it rather than out of it. If you're coming from whitewater background, it's quite a familiar feel being in a kayak compared to a wave ski. But the other thing is, a kayak has back supports and knee supports rather than just a belt, and a wave ski is quite harsh on your back. So that was probably one of the things that pushed me towards going to a kayak, just a bit less damaging on your body. But the other thing is when the surf is perfect, there is nothing better than being on a wave ski. They're absolutely fabulous. But when the waves aren't so perfect, a kayak is more fun. And when the waves are really bad, a big, long kayak is much more fun. And the reality is where I live, it seems to be much more, the surf isn't perfect all of the time. If I was living in South Africa or Australia, I suspect I'll be in a wave ski.
Yeah, interesting. I'm so happy you said that because, people are, I don't want to say they're busting my chops. It's all in good fun. But for being so new at this, I've purchased a few kayaks on my journey in the short year and a half and added a wave ski. And people say, "Oh, are you on a wave ski now?" I'm like, "No," but what you just said was perfect because out east is a different break where John and some other guys surf. They might think it's steep, but it's not steep. It can get very mountainous.
Yeah,
and it breaks pretty far out. And you can go left, then you can go right, then you can go straight, you can come back, you can work the inside. I love it. But the fact that it's such a long paddle out, what you just said about maybe a longer kayak, and I have
the International Class 3-meter boat sounds perfect for a break like that.
I mean, and John has got a Hobson Fusion, and I look over and sometimes he's gone. Like the swell is just building, and he's on the ripple before it starts to jack up, and he's gone, and he's gone. And I've taken the wave ski out there before, and it's fun, but it's just a lot more work. But there's days when I'm at Democrat Point, which is a steeper barrel and wave. And if it's 2 to 3, the wave ski's been kind of fun. I can hit the lip. But the last couple of days, I can't get it to go fast enough to stay down the line. It's like it's like a mini pipeline. You want to try to hit all 3 takeoff zones. And being I can't really work it like a surfer, knees up to your chest and pump. I just get it on the rail and go as fast as I can. And the Banshee or an IC would be perfect for that. So that's what I had out on Friday and today. Not going to take the wave ski out. So it's good. Great.
The reality is what you should do is have a nice long kayak that's very forgiving, perfect for those long rides. A nice smaller kayak that's really fun on those days where it's pretty clean but not it's a bit colder or it's not perfect. And the wave ski for that 2 to 3 foot, like you said, perfect barreling days. But of course that costs money, and also you're always going to bring the wrong kayak. And even if you bring the 2 kayaks you think and you paddle out, the conditions change and you'll always be in the wrong kayak again. So it's just one of those things that sometimes you just got to pick what you decide is going to be the best and get on with it.
Yeah, I agree. It's great. I mean, I can take 2 with me max, and on my vehicle. So especially in the summer, I would bring the Banshee and I would bring the wave ski, and I would show up. I'd look at the waves and just see which one might work. I got the Banshee after I tried out a Mega Cyclone, which I loved. As soon as I got in the Banshee, it was a little bit shorter, had some bevelness under the rails, and I looked at another guy who owned one. I'm like, dude, this thing is so tippy. Like, I don't know about this. Maybe I made a mistake. He's like, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it. And eventually I did. I don't think twice about it now. I mean, in your journey, you started when they were building kayaks and kind of exploring, like that video with Joey Hall, Deliverance. I see. and your book is great because you show some of the first inceptions of the surf kayaks, you know, from the shapes and the oddities and what works.
Well,
So
I'll tell you a bit about how the book happened. Is I was the chairman of the World Surf Kayak Association for many years, and I used to travel around to all the competitions, and me and another guy have been to more world championships than anybody else. And I started enjoying it, and I've been to all the British competitions for many years. And people were coming up to me all the time and saying, "Oh, in whatever year, where was that competition, and what happened then, and who did this?" And I was doing the same to some of the old guys as well. And it suddenly occurred to me that there's a bunch of people who are coming to the competitions, but either they're gonna, retire, leave the sport, die, whatever. And there's a lot of knowledge that's just suddenly going to disappear. And I thought that's a real shame. So I started writing down some of these bits, and
mhm.
on the same time, I managed to get hold of a copy that Matty Kinsella, I think he's called, from West Coast, had written a history of the Santa Cruz competition, and I got a copy hold of that, and I thought actually this will make a nice little bit to go on a website. So as I'm writing it all in, I suddenly think, well, actually, I think it needs a bit more than that. How about a nice little pamphlet that I could
Mm-hmm.
give away, maybe sell a few, just with a history of the surf kayaking. And when these thoughts start coming around in your head, suddenly it turned around to go, well, actually, let's just get on and write a book. Why not? I can do this. But what I didn't want to do is have it just on the history of surf kayaking, because that is a very niche market. People who are interested in surf kayaking, and a small amount of them who are interested in the history of surf kayaking. So I had to open it up, which made it more interesting for myself. And so as part of that was to tell people how it went, what all the different maneuvers were. Here's where it is at the moment. But I also wanted to go into this place where people do stuff to kayaks and do things. And I just wanted to prove a point that everybody isn't the first person to do something, oh, look, I put a seatbelt in a kayak, no one's done that before, and actually here's a picture of people in the 70s doing that. I've surfed the biggest wave in the world. Well, here's some pictures of big waves. So maybe you have, but, so I just didn't want to put anybody down for what they've done, but I just wanted people realize that actually this sport has been around for a while, and I hope that come through just to make it quite an enjoyable read, really.
It's this is great. I love history. I'm like a documentary guy.
Yeah.
I love the book because I picked up Bill Matos's book, which you and I talked about earlier, which is good. It's great. I love it too. But yours, I kept asking guys that I was interviewing before you, like when they started, and I mean Nathan was pretty forthcoming because he got right into it. He thought around 2000 or whatever time period they started shortening them and making the HP boats.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Kind of
He did get into it about that time.
Yeah. But your book was great because the history, especially here on the West Coast and all the countries. I mean, anybody out there listening, he breaks down the countries, and I'm sure you went to individuals, Argentina to the Basque country, Ireland, West Coast USA, and got all that info and pictures and a little timeline. Dude, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because the problem is people think that, things started in their country and we started doing this, that, and the other, and nobody understands quite often how that compares to other countries and where they were. So, I wanted to make a point to find out everybody's history and why they got into it and when they got into it. And, it's not easy because sometimes the people who were involved have disappeared and there's a flat spell where nobody knows anything about it. And the new group guys come in 10 years later. So, but I did what I could to try and find out what actually went on and talk to people who might know people and stuff. So yeah, and I think it come across reasonably well.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. We've got a lot of people on here. We've got Paul, wave ski surfing, John Guido out east. He's sort of near Montauk, which you and I were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
cool.
before. He's one of my guys out east, Long Island, and so my journey has kind of been stupid in a way because I have a couple. I'd ask the group. A lot of us are amateurs, so everyone's got an opinion, and
Yeah.
I made some purchases and then sold them right away. I'm like, what was I thinking? The Scarab is way too big for me. I'm way lower than the weight limit. The Mega Boost, I was like, yeah, I'm a shortboard surfer. I'm going to get the boost. And my feet were just so cramped. I couldn't last like an hour.
Yeah, well, sometimes you need to do that to understand it. Everyone in the world can tell you that might happen, but sometimes you just got to get on and try it, haven't you?
Right. Yeah, I'll lose weight. That way I can get in the weight class for the boost or for the Matrix. I'm like, nah, didn't happen.
Yeah.
Put on 10 pounds. But but I'm going to post a few other videos I've been finding and researching for everybody out there. There's a couple of good ones on the bottom of our boats, or yet it be wave ski, and in your journey, I mean, you mentioned different kayaks for different conditions and such, and I know the ICs started this whole thing with this long this trident with like no rocker. I was like, there's no way I could surf that. There's no way. That thing just is like a giant pencil, just looking like it's gonna pearl every time.
Yeah.
Did you start out in some craft like that back in the old days?
Yeah. So I was surfing a wave ski, that was really good. And then in the surf kayak competitions, they had a small wave ski event. So I got involved in that. And then there was this big ruling that they decided that wave ski shouldn't be in the surf kayak event, in the world championships, because they have their own world championships. So, what's the point on trying to double it up? So I had to make a point of either coming away from the surf kayak event and the people who I thought, really enjoyed being around, or moving across, or getting a surf kayak. So right. I went and bought the latest, most radical kayak out there, which was a Titan, I think it was called at the time, which is a 3.5 meter pencil boat, with a bit of a rail, no fins, really interesting. But because it surfed so different to the wave ski, it wasn't like I'm trying to surf something really hard. It is just something that is so different, that surfs different. So let's get on and enjoy it. So that's what I did, and that became my main kayak for a while. Various different versions of that. The rules then moved down to having 3 meter boats, so I moved on to them, and then suddenly the short boats came out. I got right into them. It took me a while to get into them, but I thought they were fabulous. So then, for many, many years, I used to surf both long and short kayaks, or international and HP kayaks, in all the competitions, and then see what the conditions were like before I took it out. The problem I've had recently is I try to surf a long kayak the same as I surf a short kayak, and that really isn't good for my back. I usually throw it around, and then the next couple of days I'm walking around a bit crippled and thinking, well, so I do thoroughly enjoy it, but actually at the moment I'm just concentrating on the short boat for a minute.
Oh, interesting. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. We were talking earlier offline, is that we're amateurs out here. I mean, if there's a pro here on the East Coast, other than I think Danny Broadhurst still lives here.
Oh yeah. I had a long chat with him when I was writing the book, actually.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and someone might comment on him. Could be bad. Could be good.
Yeah.
I know he's got an interesting personality, but listen, it is what it is. So when you when we're looking for boats, I got friends in Jersey. You know, some sit on top guys, some sit in guys. We're fairly new.
You're talking about New Jersey here?
Yeah, New Jersey, not
because I've got a lot of friends who are into surf kayaking in Old Jersey.
Yeah, I mean it when I asked even Desi, he's like, or Matthew Lamont, he's like, well, I'm like, how do you pick your boat? He's like, well, you know, it just has to do what I want it to do. I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really answer my question, but
No.
but if you're looking for something to get you out into the waves faster, right, through the beach
Yeah.
break, it's all beach break here. Even if it's a little point like where I went this morning,
Yeah.
there's still beach break rolling in. There's no dry channel.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, getting out sometimes for us, even me, you know, as good a shape as I might think I'm in, we take a beating.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one thing. And the other thing is, what do you want the boat to do when you get on the wave? You know, like, are you really interested in getting in the air or super tight turns? I find that if you were a surfer at any point, like myself, I'm instantly visualizing what I used to do on a shortboard surfboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I only had a year and a half of doing this. I can't achieve it yet, but then once in a while you'll see videos of, you know, all the guys, Echebarias and, you know, Pablo, and these guys, even if they're on a wave ski or a short boat, they're launching in the air, or they're Chris Hobson is taking a fusion and burying the nose, and then the tail is going in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and doing all that. So I've been just sitting back these days and go, okay, Richie, you got a wave ski, you got the Banshee, you know, like the apex size of a Hobson. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna enjoy this for a while. I'm gonna try to achieve the things I want to achieve. You know, put the nose plugs in, and I start burying the nose. I start hitting the lip more. You know, I get out there on a mission. So I would say to anybody listening, you know, figure out what you want to do. Like Peter said, what do you want to get out of that surf condition that day, your local break? Do you want a quiver of 4, or you just want like one all arounder, you know, or is
Yeah,
that all arounder a short boat?
absolutely. I mean, in my mind, from a beginner point of view, you got the long short boat, which is what I think your Banshee is. So that's the boat that is under 3 meters long.
Yeah.
It usually doesn't have fins, but usually has placement to put a couple of small fins in it.
Yeah, I got 3. Yeah, 3.
Yeah, and they're not super short.
Right.
And what that does, it gives you a boat that isn't too big and unwieldy, and as soon as a wave grabs it, it's taking you where it wants it to take you, not where you want to take it. But also, it does surf well. It does give you the feeling, you know, the thrill of coming in, going along the wave. It's pretty. But one of the biggest things is it's very forgiving. So when a wave hits you and it all goes wrong, it's easy to roll. You know, you can survive it pretty well, and that's pretty important when you're getting into the sport.
Yeah.
And then if you're into your surfing, shortboard, stuff like that, then you're going to probably want to go for a smaller boat. If you're into making it look good for the crowds, doing your Chris Hobson, you start cartwheeling down a wave with a 3 meter long boat, it looks pretty impressive. All these maneuvers look much better and more impressive in a big boat, but you've got to know what you're doing to be able to throw them around.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was going to pull up a video that I've been watching. I just watch videos on the weekend, especially when it's cold here. I mean, it's on YouTube. It's on all the screens. It's ridiculous. My wife was like, "What are you watching now? How many surf kayak videos you got?" I'm like, "I'm compiling all of them, in my playlist." So
that was Mark Willard.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy.
That's that Butte. That was
I've messaged him a couple of times, but I'm showing this video because I might piss off a couple of whitewater guys. But I did see some great old school, like 80s and 90s instructional videos, and just being a surfer, there's one thing that I do know: the bottom of your boat and the rail of your boat, are going to do immense things, or they're just going to keep you from doing those things that you see right here on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I do know for a fact that I've never seen a single video of someone in a necky rip or, these whitewater boats, shorter or longer, it doesn't matter. I've never seen anyone be able to go down, do a bottom turn in a big fat, cockpit going all the way down underneath you,
Yeah,
climb
absolutely.
back up the wave, hit it, and come back down and do it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, the best will in the world, you need a surf kayak to be able to do that, the same as you need a shortboard to do shortboard maneuvers if you're surfing a shortboard,
right.
You've got to have the right boat if you're going to be pushing it to this extreme, But from a learning how to do all of this, you've got to go through the motions, and you put a lot of beginners in a boat like that in those conditions, and they won't be doing that anyway.
Going down.
Yeah, absolutely. That is pretty full on to be able to do that. And you can do that in a long boat as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But, it needs to be a light boat, high performance boat that can handle that. You turn up in a big plastic whitewater boat, the bottom is not designed to do that. And
Yeah.
it'll never happen.
Yeah, and I don't want to piss off any whitewater guys because they're insane. I don't want to be around rocks when I'm getting rolled over. That's just not
Well,
who I am.
yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, when I started getting into proper maneuvers like that, where you get the boat very vertical, my whitewater career was going very much into creek boating, going down rivers that do not have much water in them, with small waterfalls and stuff like that. And then I moved into play boating, and river boats were very long at the time, and they suddenly got shorter, year by year.
Yeah.
And going into play boating taught me how to put the boat vertical and be happy with the boat when it is vertical.
Right.
And you need it to be able to do maneuvers like this, because otherwise, if you throw a boat vertical for the first time in surf, what you want to do is do a nice little cartwheel and come out of it looking really cool. But in reality, the boat goes up like that. You scare the crap out of yourself, and then you swim in.
Oh my God! Yeah, I had a pretty bad wipeout not that long ago trying to hit the lip, and it didn't turn out as I planned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little
So
more painful.
whitewater kayaking is really good way to learn how to do some of these skills and how to be happy when you get into certain positions, and then you can transfer that straight back into surf kayaking.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna pull up a photo here, and just one of my photos. I did a little teaser a minute ago by accident, but talking about the bottom of your boat and the rail of your boat. It's so big. Even for me, my buddy John loaned me a necky rip,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great. I learned how to roll, and it's the boat on the let's see the bottom there.
Oh yeah.
But I actually never took it out on this. I never took it out on the surf. I mean, I already knew just from being a surfer, and there's a lot of people out there that aren't surfers. I already knew what was going to happen to this boat when I got it in a wave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was fine. It's fine. But I just from surfing, I wanted something more.
Yeah.
And the reason I stacked these boats up was because just to look at the rail in the bottom more than anything else, because having a hard edge and my wave ski here is an intermediate, so it's not high performance like some of them out there. And anyone listening, I mean, you get what you pay for. You can only do so much, especially as a beginner or intermediate with these 3 surf craft. I mean, don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the whitewater boat there at the bottom, the necky, I'm not sure about the fin on it, but if you go out there in, small surf, and you'll have great fun, you'll learn what it is all about. But as you said before, you're not going to be pulling any big maneuvers, but it's a good stepping stone to take you to the next step. The next boats are definitely higher performance, and you could take them to a competition or whatever, and you're not going to be making a fool of yourself at all. As soon as you know how to use them, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I just say that because I have some whitewater guys. I keep trying to promote the sport and convince people to buy a surf kayak. So we do have some used ones out here in Long Island.
Yeah.
I think last year we must have sold like 8. Once the warm weather came around, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, we had people coming out and buying, John Guido's, this guy, the guy John. Some bullets went, a fusion went, a boost just went, a proton is almost leaving here in the next month or two.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about, and it's good that you've got a lot of variety of boats as well, because there is places where there's a small community and there's only 1 or 2 boats, and people don't get to understand the differences in all the boats. So having a nice variety, so people can actually, if they're thinking about getting a different boat, they can actually try them and see what they're like.
Right. One thing I do like about your book is that you do talk about different surf craft, and like the pros and cons. We just kind of grazed over, but having it here in writing, I can just keep reflecting to it. But what I also like, guys out there, there's a great section in here. I mean, there's so much good stuff. How the surf works. I always forget, like, my brother and I have been in the ocean since we were, 8 years old, whatever, and just never stop. But some people just don't really understand, like, how it's going to work. And I find, like, my whitewater friends or even sea kayak guys, obviously there's no way you can just get out there and realize, okay, waves are breaking there, but it looks like it's reforming here. So I got a paddle over there, but it's kind of steep, but and then am I going left or am I going right? And as a beginner, a lot of people just go straight.
Yeah, absolutely. A good straight under.
Go straight under, right. So, and you also talk about different break types, which is great. We talked about that earlier. So, I mean,
if you really want to learn about how the surf works, there is a book called Surf Science, and it's written in a way that is very easy to understand, and it isn't written as particularly as a surfer, but it is for surfers. But you could read it if you were a sailor or whatever. There is a little section at the back of every chapter that if you're doing your degree in surf science or something, you can add that little bit of equations on it. But the main subject is all about exactly how all the tides and all the surf works. And if you want to get nerdy about how that works and understand that, what wave periods are and everything else, that is a very good recommendation.
Yeah. What I also love about your book here, anyone that's getting into surf kayaking, is the surf etiquette. Like some people have no clue.
That is very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're like, the lone wolves out there sometimes. There's 10 surfers and I'm the only surf kayaker. And, if you don't know about being on the inside and dropping in on someone and all that stuff, maybe an unspoken rotation of getting into the takeoff zone, all kinds of stuff. Just don't run any surfers over,
Absolutely. Yeah, they can get really nasty. There's certain places that you just don't want to get into that situation.
Right.
I've been in a very territorial break in northern Spain before with me and a couple of mates in a nice bit of surf, and there's been a load of locals there, and you could tell that they did not want us there. And so all we did was stayed on the inside. Any wave that came, if they were anywhere near it, it was their wave. Yeah. And it took probably an hour before they accepted us and almost gave us a hand signal to say, yes, you've been respectful. You can now take some waves, And then we had another hour of, still giving them their waves, but they would let us have waves for a while, instead, and it was great. But, it wasn't the type of place. We're in their turf in a very territorial area. And it was either that or, your van's not going to have air in its tires when you get back.
Yeah, I experienced that Friday. Me and my buddy Ross went out, and we go on the shoulder. There's a couple of takeoff zones, but you stay away from the main peak for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then work your way in. And I'll go inside when it clears out. They actually take the wave so far, they get out on the beach and walk back up.
Oh wow.
5-10 minutes sometimes. This
Yeah.
special play, it was breaking the last couple of days. And but that's the thing, I mean, I'll get on the inside, I'll take a wave, and then I'm not going to come back for another 5-10 minutes,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
and keep the peace, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on fins and rail, and beveled rails underneath, and V tails on the shorter boats, which have become very popular. Behind the
Yeah.
fins.
It's a very interesting subject. There is a couple of websites that delve quite deeply into these things. If you surf a longer international class boat, which doesn't have fins, it has a long, sharp rail instead, which acts as the fins. That's a very good way to learn what it's all about and how fins work. I would definitely recommend people having a go and surfing those craft
Yeah.
because it gives you a good insight. So people think you've got to have a fin, otherwise how's it going to work? The biggest mistake that beginners have is they think that fins are there to stop you sliding sideways.
Right, which is kind of what I thought until you just mentioned it. So.
Yeah, that is not what fins are there for. Fins are like the sail on a boat. They make you go faster forward.
Yeah.
So they transfer the sideways movement into forward movement. So if you take an international class boat, you haven't got any fins, you've got a bit of a rail, and that does a similar thing. But yeah, if you don't need them to stop you going sideways. What you need them to do is to make you go faster. So that's what they're there for. Placement is, the further forward you have it, the more maneuverable your kayak is. The further back you have them, the more stable and faster your kayak is. And what you need to do is definitely find that sweet spot and then keep it there. And then in 6 months' time, when you've been playing a bit more, change it again because your style might have changed, everything else might have changed, And a big thing, what happens is people break a fin, replace it with one that isn't exactly the same, think they put it in the same place, but it hasn't, and they don't realize it, or they hit rocks with it and the fin moves back and they don't realize it. So constantly checking your fins and placement, every, few months, a couple of years, whatever, is quite important. And then the big thing is fin size. That is all down to the style of surfing and how heavy you are.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've got a tiny little fin and you weigh 250 pounds, that fin is pretty pointless. But if you've got a massive fin under there, but you weigh nothing, it isn't going to do anything. So it all down to how you surf, your placement of your fins, what you're used to, and how heavy you are. Yeah, that's a pretty good fin there. Look at that. That's having the thin at the next to the kayak and thicker at the bottom is a thing that's come and gone many times over the last 30, 40 years, and some people like them, some people don't.
Yeah. I've pretty much settled on just what I think is working for me right now. I ended up having I use 3 fins, and just getting that new boat, I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is way too turny, too tippy. So I would put the larger fins in and move them back a good bit.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten a little better, I think I've slowly moved them forward and kept them in the same spot. And I think I've got 2.5s on there right now. And,
yeah.
Steep waves out by me, once in a while, some mushier waves. It just seems to make me happy, and I get the joy out of what I'm looking for. So that's it. Not touching
absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And one thing you've got to be a little bit careful with is, in an ideal world, when it's big surf, you have big fins on, and when it's small surf, you have small fins on, because you need the stability in the big surf, and in the small surf, you need to be able to throw the boat around.
Right.
What you've got to watch is when the surf suddenly gets big, you're now going to change your fins and have a boat that you're not used to,
Right.
and you're going out in big surf, and actually you'd be much better going out in a boat that you knew how it worked. It's going to be much safer and a lot better for you, rather than here's a boat that I have no idea what it's now doing.
Well, I've done that before, like an idiot, and I went back to the beach and got the screwdriver out. And by the time I get it done, my hands are frozen
Yeah,
and the surf's dying, and then I got to get to work. I'm like,
yeah,
shit.
absolutely, yeah. So it's all great ideas, and books can write. You can write books all about this and how this is what you should do. But actually, I'm a firm believer that when I go into a big competition, a few months before I go, my boat is set up the way it is, and nothing's changing. Whatever happens to anything, unless I break the boat, this is a setup. I'm used to it. I'm happy with it. The end.
That's great. So I wanted to ask you about training. You
Yep.
do have some great photos in your book here on inverted aerials, tube rides, the roundhouse cutback, which I love, because as a surfer, that was kind of one of the things that I could achieve, hitting the lip.
Yeah, one of my favorite maneuvers, the roundhouse cutback. It's quite an easy maneuver to do, but to do well and properly, it, takes a lot of doing, and it just feels so good when you do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you touch on everything in this book, but we know being close to the pocket, is where you're going to get all your energy and your speed. So,
Yeah,
bottom turning and coming back to that area, hitting the lip, or if you're going to outrun the wave. I've been really practicing my roundhouse cutbacks, not really hitting the lip when I come back to the foam pile. Getting better at it. But
yeah, well, that's the next thing. You do it on the green, and then you just nudge the edge of the pile, and then
yeah,
eventually you get it. So you're actually using the pile to force you back.
yeah. I find where my buddy Guido is out east, the waves are a little more forgiving after the first pitch, and
Yeah.
I don't have this wall that's going to crush me, so I usually do that kind of stuff out there, because you can go left, you can go right. Where I go this morning and Friday, it's just it's just a straight pipeline down.
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to be messing around with roundhouse cutbacks there, are you?
Inside just really can close out hard on the sandbar, so I'm really not hitting the lip unless it's like just 2 feet or something. But
Yeah.
But you got some great tips in here. I mean, even drawing little diagrams on the photos here, which I love. And even this guy here on screen, I'm not sure who it is. He's riding a Hobson, but
Yeah.
I mean, when you train, can you give any advice on, like, when you were a beginner, like, how do you get to that next level?
So competition is quite important, actually. If you go to competitions, what it does is forces you to watch what everybody else is doing. And it's great to see the guys, getting a massive inverted air. But when you're a beginner, just trying to do your first few turns and, roundhouse cutbacks, that is seeing the big aerials isn't quite achievable. But what it does do is make you go out and surf harder than you normally would do without thinking about, I must get back to make tea, and did I put the pins out? So it does focus you on that, but also you watch other people doing what they're doing and think, I could do that. Why can he do that and I can't? That looks like something I can do. So you're in an environment where people are doing that. Quite often there's people that are a few stages beyond you, so they drag you up into that. So yeah, that would be my biggest thing is, and I'm not saying you got to go to a competition because you got to win and you're going to be next world champion, but just because of the environment, a bit like having a surf kayak symposium. You've got everybody there, everybody's talking about everything. Why have you got that fin there? Why have you got your seat position there? and you go out, and there may be some people who aren't from your area who've got different ideas, and they turn around and say, I've been watching you, and your seat's in completely the wrong place, or something like that. So um, that's probably one of the big things. Time in the water is the other big thing. They often say you've got to do 10,000 hours on a sport to become good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's so much easier when you're, a 17, 18-year-old kid who isn't scared of anything, and can itch your right ear or your leg. But when you're not that,
Yeah.
like Darren here, Darren surfs pretty much every day for the last 40 years.
Jeez.
I used to go surfing with Darren. I'd phone him up in the late afternoon to say, I'm thinking about going surfing this afternoon, this evening, and he would say, well, I went this morning. It was like this. I'm at the gym now, staring at the surf. I think it'll be good. I'll see you there at 5 o'clock. And I'm thinking, well, I've got to go work. So but that's how Darren becomes as good as he is, because that's what he does all the time. It's time in the water.
Yeah, it's great that you said that, because I got my buddy Ross, who's in Jersey. He's sit on New Jersey. He's sit on top guy, but listen, man, he charges it. I mean, he'd ride to sit on top, but he goes out there for 4 hours with me. Either in New Jersey or here in New York, and he just killed. Yeah, he could take the endurance, the beating, and there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely,
well, I got a job. I'm not retired yet, but come the weekend, if I can do 4 hours, I will. Or I might go out tomorrow, 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, just to kind of get to this level,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what it's all about, time in the water and meeting other people who aren't, are either in your group, to learn from them and discuss things, and then meeting people that aren't in your group to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it. I always recommend that if the World Championships is in your area, maybe you don't have to go and enter it, but go and have a watch, for a few days to see what they're doing, and that'll really bump things up.
Yeah, it's good you said that. I mean, we don't have anything like that here. Kind of a bummer, but
yeah, what you need to do is organize a surf trip to to a symposium where Joey Hall and Spencer is, or maybe the Santa Cruz competition, in California, or
yeah.
yeah,
that's kind of my next step. I think it is, and you were talking about that. I mean, I don't really know. You got some great moves in here, and I think you commented on like the kind of the progression of moves, and like the 360 is kind of passe, a spinner.
yeah.
Judged in competition, maybe not so much scoring any points.
Yeah. Americans love a 360.
But I agree with you totally. It's surfers aren't doing them. They stopped doing them a long time ago. Now they do 360 aerials.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't even bother really. It's just kind of pointless. But what I love about your book and about kayak surfing is that we're trying to emulate stand-up surfing. It seems, I could be wrong, the maneuvers, but then we get to do some like Chris is doing, putting his nose in, putting the tail in the air, doing these. I forgot the name of it, a cartwheel or an air wheel.
Cartwheel, Pan Ams, aerial blunts. Yeah.
Right. So you got any advice on doing any of those maneuvers where you get upside down?
Well, it's interesting because you say we're trying to emulate the surfers, but actually, up until your Kelly Slater times, the surfers weren't doing those maneuvers, and what was happening is the surf kayakers moved into it because they were there was a bunch of guys, particularly your guys from your area, Wilmington, Joey and Spencer Cook and all them guys, and then separately the Basque guys they were whitewater kayakers, so they were dragging in those maneuvers into surfing, and that's and then you've got the main people who are just into surf kayaking fighting the other way, and now you've got a conglomerate of both of them. So yeah, it's quite interesting. On it's only when Kelly Slater come along and a few of his chums that they decided that they wanted to perhaps his aerial 360s were quite good, and they've jumped their sport forward. But yeah, I see a lot of these maneuvers have initially come from whitewater backgrounds.
Interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, what was your original question? I think I drifted off there.
No, I think you answered it. But actually, how would you? I mean, I tried to hit the lip and I got kind of spanked pretty hard. But I know it's probably tough, being we're not going to be surfing together. But any advice? I mean, I do try to put in the nose plugs if I know I'm going to go out there and I'm going to hit the lip on every single wave. But
yeah,
if I want to try to get the nose in the water, get the tail in the air, when I do hit the lip, do you have any advice on?
So the easiest way to practice it is to wait until a shoulder is coming towards you. So you're currently going along a wave, like Chris Hobson is there. A wave comes towards you, a shoulder comes towards you, and you end up with this ramp basically, and that's the point that you can hit high up on the lip and throw the boat down, and that's a really good point to learn these places. When you get to these places that he's going through now in a closeout, it's all about the next step is all about speed. And sometimes you're on a wave and the boat is going along and it's fine, but it's nothing exhilarating. It's just going along. And then sometimes it suddenly gets steep and you suddenly think, wow, this boat is really going fast. Everything is just right. Soon as that happens, you've got to be thinking, right, this is the time to hit the lip, and start doing that. It's one of those things where you think, right, today I'm going to learn to do aerials, and off you go. But in reality, your skill set needs to be there first, and the waves need to be there. If they're flat waves, or super fast where you're, fighting for your life on them, there's no point even thinking about trying to learn an aerial. You need to decide what you want to learn, and then make sure that is even achievable on the waves that you have on the day you're doing it. And then if you find something looks good, starts working, well, that's the thing you need to practice.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know in your book here, there's so many maneuvers, and I mean, I think for anybody out there who's a beginner, like I still consider myself a beginner, being I don't think I have any moves where I can score any points in a competition. Seriously, what? But just to start really trying to do bottom turns and top turns and cutbacks and redirecting back to the the shoulder and things like that. I mean, eventually you kind of have to start at the easy maneuvers and start somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't jump to the advanced maneuvers just because they look great. Unfortunately, you've got to make your way up, and some things you can jump a little bit forward, but it's all to do with grounding stuff down. You've got to know how to do the basic stuff, and then you can move your way up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's great, man.
So I've got a couple of books here that I just think.
Oh yeah, please do. Yeah, what you got?
So so this book here is called All About Wave Skis, okay, by Roger Shackleton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I use this a lot when I was writing the book, and if for example, it tells you about top turns, and then gives you lots of diagrams and information on how that works. And it's the same all the way through on how you should sit in your kayak or your wave ski, as it happens in this book, how to do the maneuvers, and how the boat works, how the design of the wave ski works. Now, it is all about wave skis, but actually it's very directionally move across onto surf kayaks. Unfortunately, the book come out in, I think it was in 1985. It is out of print, but if you look on secondhand bookshops, you can find it.
Mm,
So yeah, that is all about wave skis.
nice.
Really good. Here's what a maneuver is. This is how to do it.
Oh, I love that.
And then if you move on to some other couple of books, is you've already put in. They've got a couple of different covers, but there's Bill Matos's book,
That's good. Yeah.
which does very similar thing in a different way. Which is good. Yeah, there's the other version. Look at that.
Yeah.
And then there's which come out a very similar time. Simon Hammond, Surf Kayaking: The Essential Guide. So where Bill Mattis's book is all the maneuvers and how to do them, my book is pretty much these are what the maneuvers are, but doesn't tell you how to do them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an in-between book of Simon Hammond's, which is an interesting read. And there is rumours he's talking about updating it. So that's good. And then there is another one by a guy called Nigel Foster. That tells you it's very much about I am in a whitewater kayak and very beginner on doing the basic stuff. But I wanted to show you because it's another book that encompasses all these things, but it isn't the best.
Well, it's great that you shared those books.
Yeah, there's another one here which is very old. This is 70s, and the reason I wanted to show you this book is there's a great picture from the mid 70s of a lot of the guys. This was a scene in the 70s. And this was happening in Montauk as well as South Africa and the rest of the world. And if you really want to get into the very old stuff, there's this guy called Oliver Cock. So he was an English guy who invented canoe polo. If you've ever played that sport, that was invented by him, and he run the first ever surf kayak competition in 1967.
Interesting.
So so there's a few books that I would recommend reading, other than obviously, that book.
Excellent. Well, I like that you brought up other books besides yours. I found you through the Facebook groups, asking only because we had a newspaper article come out and the reporter asked me about surf kayaking and the history. They thought it was so cool. And I'm like, well, I there's some sites I can send to you maybe. And I actually put a question up on one of the groups and your name came up. And yeah, so somebody called you out. So yeah. So your website is great. I mean,
if you look on my website, there is. It's very much about the British scene, but there is the British paddle surf history there at the top there, and if you click onto there, there's some good. It's very much the British scene, but for wave ski and surf kayak, and some really old footage.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my, that's too funny. I love the old stuff, the old equipment. You're like, how did they surf that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's a boat called a Trilon Weaver, which you could build yourself, and they would give you the plans for it. And a friend of mine, another guru, guy called Denzel Pierce, you'll probably hear his name come up a lot if you start delving in the history. He's got pretty much every surf kayak ever made in his back garden, and this particular one happens to be his, stored in my back garden. And I've surfed it a few times, and it's very long. The weight distribution is nowhere near where the surfer sits. And when you put it on a wave and head it in a direction, it does not matter what the wave does. It is going in that direction, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the top boats of the 70s,
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, we're almost out of time, but it always flies here, and not too many questions, just some comments. And I think someone did find that book on thriftbooks.com, all about wave skis. So I might have to buy it. I'm gonna have to hunt that thing down. Yeah, I mean, my journey is similar to some guys out here, and we're just trying to get better. We're just trying to emulate the moves that you guys do, and it's great that you're still active in the sport and everything. I mean, were you at the world titles this year?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, what's that whole scene like? The judging and the competition and the judging of maneuvers and
Oh,
things.
it's fantastic,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Because even if you aren't actually competing or just turn up and only get through a couple of rounds, you know everyone's buzzing. There's kayaks everywhere. There's stuff you can, if you want to thinking about a new kayak, you can just see what everyone else is doing. There's people from different nationalities. It's all about meeting people as much as the actual surfing. This particular one, the final day had big surf. The tide, our surf is very tidal dependent. We have big tides where we
Right.
are. Um, so yeah, the tide was in, the sun was out, so it was a proper spectacle. Yeah, it was really good. You know,
Excellent. Yeah, listen, it was great talking to you. I'm going to continue to. What I love about the book is, yeah, everyone out there, please visit Pete's website, and I bought it on Amazon. As much as I don't like supporting the big machine, um, here in America, it's we're gluttons, I guess. Everything
yeah, yeah,
we want it, and I can get it. So, but I'm glad that this went to you, and yeah, I mean, maybe we will buy some of these in bulk next time, and have them for us out here. But yeah, listen, there's waves tomorrow too. I might head out tomorrow, and I'll go back to this video and I'll write down all those books that you mentioned earlier. And
cool.
if anyone wants to get in touch with you, should they through Facebook Messenger or your website,
Yeah,
email?
Facebook Messenger is the best way, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Great. So you and I will hang on after we sign off. And any last words of wisdom and or anything you can say out here?
Um, Make sure you see other people surfing and talk to people, to see what they're doing, and it's time on the water, and just make sure you enjoy yourself. Just don't and try not to go out into big scary surf too much and put yourself off. It's all about enjoying yourself, and surf small stuff with friends more often than surf big scary stuff and put yourself off.
Yeah, I like one of your talking points. It's just have fun out there. And if you're in a whitewater boat and that's what you want to do, and
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Wave skis are great. Sit on tops are great. As long as you're safe and you're enjoying yourself. It's all about being on the water. That's
yeah,
why we do it.
there's so little of us that I just welcome anyone. Whitewater, sit on top, plastic, wave ski, sit in. We try to band together out here, and I'm doing my best to kind of get us all together where we kind of
Yeah,
know
I
each
mean, if
other.
you go on holiday somewhere, there's always if you're in the groups through Facebook, there's always somebody surf kayaking somewhere, and more often than not, they can lend you some kit if you want to go for a surf somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I usually have an extra one here, so I'm always welcoming people to come down and join me. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, well, listen, everybody, we're out of time. I want to thank Peter, and yeah, you were great, man. So you and I'll hang on after we sign off, and
Cool.
thanks for listening, everybody. And if you want to continue to put comments in, even if you're watching on the replay right now, later or tomorrow, I'll try to answer them, or I'll forward them over to Pete, and maybe he can answer your questions or your comments. All
Cool.
right, thanks everybody.
Cheers.